I stood there nervously, watching, waiting for the big reveal. A huge blanket was hanging over my house, keeping it hidden from sight. Suddenly, I heard the sound of a drum roll and the blanket dropped to the floor. Wow! Just wow! My house was made of gold. I was stunned by the image before me. All around me, people were gasping and clapping and shouting congratulations to me. A man from the local newspaper came over and pointed his microphone in my face. Cameras flashed left, right, and center.
What do you think of your house?
It's amazing. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you do, you might end up with a house made of gold too. How did I get a gold house? Well, let me start at the beginning. Ever since I was a young boy, I had always been into adventure. I kind of saw myself as a bit of an Indiana Jones character. I was always going off on imaginary adventures. By the time I was in my teens, the urge for adventure had become like an obsession to me. Everything I did and everywhere I went, I was looking for excitement. So when my parents told me that we were going on holiday to Mexico, I could hardly contain myself. Oh my God, I can't wait. I'm going to have so many adventures in Mexico.
Come on now, Tom. Don't get too excited.
I wasn't going to let my parents dampen my enthusiasm. I knew that they weren't that happy about my sense of adventure. They were always worried I would end up in some kind of trouble. Okay, Dad, I'll calm down. I counted down the days to our trip to Mexico. Eventually, the day arrived and we left for the airport. The moment we landed in Mexico, I could feel the excitement building up inside of me. The first thing I want to do is to go looking for lost treasure. My parents looked at each other skeptically.
I don't think you're going to find any treasure, Tom. Why don't you just enjoy your holiday at the beach?
I wasn't going to let them put me off. I pleaded with them to let me go off on my own, and eventually they gave in and agreed to let me. The following morning, straight after breakfast, I set off with my map and some provisions in my rucksack. I had done some research before I left home, and I knew exactly where I wanted to head to. Behind our hotel was a mountain range, and it was rumored to be filled with hundreds of hidden caves. I felt sure that I would find something interesting in there. It didn't take me long to find a hole leading inside the mountain. I made my way inside. It was dark inside, so I took out the flashlight and began to shine it around. The passageway led deep inside the mountain, too far for me to be able to see the end. I was just beginning to make my way inside when suddenly about a dozen spears shot out of the rocky wall and blocked my path. Now what am I going to do? I can't get past these. I looked around me to see what could have caused them to appear. I noticed immediately that I had walked through an infrared light. I opened my rucksack and took out a book. I took aim and threw it across the beam of light. Immediately, the spears returned into their position inside the rock. Well, that wasn't too difficult. I carried on a bit further up the passageway. Suddenly, I heard a noise coming from above me. A huge boulder was hurtling down towards me. I leaped forward, managing to avoid it just in time. The sound of it crashing to the floor behind me gave me a fright. Wow, that was close. I'd better keep my wits about me. When I got to the end of the passageway, I could see a door in front of me. I tried to open it, but it was locked and there didn't seem to be any way of unlocking it. As I began to search the area for some kind of mechanism to open the door, I suddenly spotted a puzzle built into the floor. It had different shaped holes, and to the left of the puzzle was a pile of stones of all different shapes. I began to search through them, trying them out one by one in each of the holes in the puzzle. Yes! I gave a shout of delight when I found the first stone that fitted perfectly into its matching hole. One by one, I began to fill up the puzzle until finally there was only one hole left to complete. I searched the pile of stones, but nothing seemed to fit. Just when I was about to give up hope, I noticed a little ledge built into the side of the rock. I reached up, and sure enough, on top of the ledge was a small stone. I placed it into the last remaining hole. As soon as it slipped into place, I heard a weird grinding noise, and the door in front of me began to slide open. When I saw what was behind the door, I nearly fainted. The room was filled with tons and tons of gold. I ran inside and began filling my rucksack with the gold. There was so much, though, I couldn't possibly carry it all. I decided that I would take as much as I could and then go back later for the rest. When I got back to the hotel, I ran straight to find my parents. Mom, Dad, I found treasure.
Haha, what did you find?
Probably some fake jewelry or something, I bet.
I opened my rucksack and showed my parents the gold. There's nothing fake about this, and there's lots more back in the mountains.
I think you better show us what you have found, Tom.
I took my parents back to the room where the gold was. When they saw the amount that was in there, they were shocked, to say the least.
Don't tell anyone about this, Tom. We will sort it out, okay?
Yes, Dad, of course. My parents returned the next day with a team of workers. They melted all the gold down and transported it out of the mountain. Once they had it all out, they arranged for it to be shipped back to our home. But even though they managed to get it out under the radar, they hit a problem. Where were they going to store it? It was while I was watching a TV show about a character who lives in a house made of cheese that I came up with the idea. I told my parents what I had thought of. We should make a house made from gold. No one will question where we got the gold from. They'll probably think we're trying to break a world record or something.
That sounds like a great idea, Tom. We will make a big announcement. Tell everyone what we are planning.
Great idea. No one will be suspicious if we're open about what we were doing. So that's what we did. My dad organized for a documentary team to follow our journey. They recorded every detail. Builders came in and began to build the house using our gold. When it was eventually ready, my dad told everyone that the big reveal would be broadcasted live on television. Finally, the day came for the big reveal. I stood beside my parents in the front garden, waiting for the blanket that was covering our house to be dropped. A drum rolled, and then whoosh, the blanket dropped to the ground. Lights were flashing from all directions as news teams and camera crews got their first images of our gold house.
Congratulations! I've never seen anything like this in my life!
Wow!
What do you think of your house?
It's amazing. Eventually, the last of the reporters packed up and left. We had spent hours answering their questions and posing for photos. Well then, what are we waiting for? I guess it's time to move into our new home. I followed my parents into the house. It was literally blinding. Everything was made from gold. Gold walls, gold doors, gold cupboards, and even gold beds. To be honest, it was a bit too much, but we had made it, so now we had to live in it. About a week after we moved in, my dad's sister and her family came to visit us. They were gobsmacked when they saw the inside of the house.
This is something else. I never imagined there'd be so much gold.
My two cousins became quite giddy when they saw all the gold. They began running around the room, pushing and shoving each other. Suddenly, one of them pushed his brother so hard he went flying into the wall, making a big dent in it. When I saw the dent, my mouth dropped in shock. I looked over at my parents to see if they had seen what I had seen. They obviously had, because their faces were full of shock too. The dent in the wall had revealed that underneath the top layer of gold was just ordinary plaster. My dad went over to the wall and began to chip away at it.
I don't believe it. The house is built just like any normal house, only it has a thin layer of gold paint over everything.
So where's the gold then?
That's what I want to know too.
It didn't take us long to discover that the whole house was like it. And not only that, the gold paint covering it wasn't even real gold. It was fake gold paint.
Look now, we're not going to tell anyone what we have discovered. We will do some investigating and try to get to the bottom of it.
My parents began to look into the team of builders that they had hired.
Someone in that team must know where our gold is, and I intend to find out.
What are you going to do, Dad?
Just leave it to me. I'm going to sort it out.
The next day, my dad left the house really early. He didn't tell Mom or me where he was going. The hours ticked away as we sat and waited for him to come back. I hope he hasn't got into any trouble. We don't know what this team might be capable of. But when Dad got home, we were shocked to see that he had a man with him. The man's hands were tied behind his back, and Dad pushed him down into a chair.
Now tell us what happened to our gold. I don't know. Don't lie. Tell us now or you're going to regret it. Okay, I'll tell you. Just don't hurt me.
Go on then. Tell us what you did.
Someone contacted us and told us that if we helped him, he would pay us a lot of money.
What did he ask you to do?
He said we should build an ordinary house and paint it with fake gold paint, then give the real gold to him. So that's what we did.
Who was the man? What is his name?
His name is Brian Evergreen.
My parents looked at each other in shock. I had never heard the name before. Just by the looks on their faces, it was obvious they knew who he was. Who is he, Dad?
Brian was a co-worker of ours. We worked together on some, on some work that wasn't quite legal.
Before I had a chance to react to what my dad had told me, we suddenly heard a loud crash from outside. We ran out to see what it was. We couldn't believe it. A van had crashed into our garden fence. I could see a man getting out of the van.
Brian!
I looked around at my dad. So this must be Brian Evergreen.
Release the worker you have kidnapped right now, or I will reveal to the public that it was you and your son that stole the treasure without killing anyone, and you know that that's illegal. Okay, we will release him on one condition. You give us $100 million to compensate. I'm not giving you a cent. Well, if you don't, then we will tell everyone that you stole the gold from us. I don't have the gold.
What do you mean you don't have the gold? The worker told us he gave it to you.
Yes, that's right, he did. And I threw it all into the ocean.
What? Why would you do that? You idiot!
You know exactly why I did it, don't you?
I looked at my parents to see if they knew what he was talking about, but neither of them said anything.
Do you think I would let you get away with what you did to me? You crossed me on that gig, and I ended up spending the last 10 years of my life in jail. I've been waiting to get my revenge on you, and now I've finally done it. This is your payback.
I looked at my parents' faces. They both looked distraught, and that was exactly how I was feeling too. After all our hard work, finding the treasure, bringing it back, and building the house, all we were left with now was an ordinary house with a disgusting layer of fake gold all over it.